Here's something that might completely shift how you approach your health and nervous system work. You are not who you think you are. Let that sink in for just a moment. Hello, beautiful human. My name's Dan, and over the past decade, I've been working with entrepreneurs and founders on nervous system health, conscious leadership, and deep self-inquiry work. And what I've noticed is this. People can do the breathwork, the somatic practices, even meditation, yet still feel stuck. And here's why. Your nervous system isn't just responding to language or breath patterns, but breath patterns are responding to who you take yourself to be, your identity. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the hidden connection between who you think you are and your biology. And if you stay until the end, I'll let you know how to access the full step-by-step self-inquiry process that you can do in the comfort of your own home. The exact process that I use with all of my clients to create genuine freedom. Not just nervous system regulation, but actual liberation from the patterns of mind that might stimulate the nervous system without throwing the mind out completely. This is probably the deepest work we can do. So let me ask you something and be honest with yourself here. When I ask you, who are you? What comes up? Maybe it's your name. Maybe it's your role as a business owner or a parent, partner, a son, daughter. Maybe it's your behaviors, your emotions, the things you do, or even your thoughts. What if the reason your nervous system keeps getting triggered isn't because you haven't mastered that right breath or breathing technique or haven't done enough somatic work? But what if it's because you're identified too tightly with things that are fundamentally coming and going, coming and going? Let's explore this. First question, are you your name? Now you might be sitting there thinking, well, obviously I'm not just my name, Dan. But watch what happens when someone mispronounces your name or forgets it, and how closely we tie ourselves to the connotations when someone says our name, all of the thoughts that arise, associations with that. And so the name is just a label, a few letters arranged on a bit of paper. If you wrote your name down right now and held it up, would that piece of paper be you? Of course not. Yet somewhere there's an identification happening with everything associated with that name. And then there's an identification in your nervous system that treats any challenge to that identity as a biological threat. You are not your name. That's the first piece. Secondly, are you the roles that you play? As a business owner, mother, father, teacher, the achiever, the passionate one, right? Now, this is a really interesting one because we have responsibilities within these roles, right? So let's be real with this. As a parent, there are things you're absolutely responsible for. As a business owner, same thing. But here's the key. Were you doing those exact roles when you were 5 years old, 8 years old? Will you always be in those roles? No, they shift, they come, they go, they change, and some entirely. Yet you remain. So you can't possibly be those roles. There's sets of responsibilities, contexts that you show up in, but they are not who you are. And now watch what happens when we identify too tightly, too strongly with a role, and that role gets threatened. Maybe the business is struggling. Maybe your kids don't need you as much as they did when they were younger. Maybe you're questioning your purpose after achieving success. Your nervous system perceives that as a threat to your very existence, to your place here on the planet. But it's not, because you're not those roles. So you are not at threat. This is what we call a perceived threat that might not be an actual threat. But it's a difficult one for us humans and for the human thinking mind. Third one, are you your behaviors? The things you do, the things that people can observe in you, how you show up within all of those roles. Surely you are your behaviors. Well, your behaviors are shifting and changing and constantly coming and going just as your roles are. You couldn't possibly be your behaviors. Now, just because you are not your behaviors does not mean that you are not 100% responsible for your behaviors, but you are not those behaviors. Now, this might be a relief when it comes to behaviors that we may be carrying a little bit of shame and guilt around. And there's healthy shame and guilt, but the metastating of shame about the shame and the guilt about the guilt is not so useful. If we're carrying that around behaviors that we've done, we need to recognize that we are not those behaviors. We can shift those, but we are 100% responsible for those. Now, on the flip side, all of the beautiful behaviors that occur, we're also not those. They are ones we're responsible for, and we do bring them into the world, but we are not those either. Behaviors come and go. You couldn't possibly be your behaviors. Now, for the fourth one, and this might feel a bit strange, are you this body? You might be thinking, well, this is the only thing that's really real, Dan. But let's look at this from a scientific lens. Yeah. Every 7 to 8 years, give or take, every single cell in this body replenishes, rejuvenates, regenerates. Every single cell, which means this body has literally come and gone 5, maybe 6 times in your lifetime so far. Something remained as it was coming and going. There is a version of this body that once existed that no longer exists here right now. So you are not this body. It's a beautiful sacred vessel and we need to take care of it. Absolutely. Your consciousness runs through it and is as it. However, you are not the body because you have been present to every iteration of it. Okay, so you're not your name. You're not your roles. You're not your behaviors or this body. So here's where it gets really interesting. And this is what most people miss in nervous system work. You're also not your emotions. Let me show you why this matters for your biology. Think about the last time you felt a strong emotion, anger, maybe anxiety, excitement. Now, here's the question. Are you that emotion? Most of us say, I am angry. I am anxious. Same phrasing that we use as when we're introducing ourselves to someone. I am Dan. I am angry. Nice to meet you, angry. Pretty hilarious when you notice it, right? But watch what happens when you identify as that emotion. You experience it as though you're in the middle of a storm, completely consumed. Your window of tolerance collapses because your nervous system thinks it needs to protect this identity versus when you can take half a step back, not disassociate, but disidentify to see it for what it actually is. Energy running through the body, something moving through, not something you are. That creates spaciousness, and spaciousness is where your nervous system can actually regulate, where you can pendulate between activation and relaxation in a healthy way. So the final piece, are you your thoughts? Now, you might already know the answer to this by now. They come, they go. They're transient, just like everything else in this human existence. But here's what's really happening. We identify with certain thoughts, the ones that feel convenient, the ones that support our self-image, and we reject others, the ones we judge as not me. I couldn't possibly be that or have done that. There's a purity of thought that runs through a primary signal, and then there's all the meta stating, the thought about the thought about the thought about the thought. And what happens, and what we know from the NLP communication model, is that you have a physiological response, then the conscious mind has a thought about that, then you have another feeling about that thought, and another thought about that feeling, and another feeling about that thought. And we get caught in the thinking, feeling bind, just layering noise on top of noise on top of noise. You are not your thoughts. So then What are you? Not your name, not your roles, or your behaviors, or your body, or your emotions, or your thoughts. If you're not any of these, what are you? Just notice. Is there anything arising? Nothingness. Presence, pure awareness. You are the most stable thing in this entire cosmos. How do we know that to be true? You have been present to every single thing that has come and gone in this lifetime. The roles you've played, the relationships and the state of those relationships have changed, the thoughts and the emotions that have moved through the body, that it's literally regenerated multiple times. You have been present to it all. An immense capacity for presence and awareness that is not required or does not require any meditation practice because it is what you are, the purity of awareness and presence. Not doing things in life with more awareness. You already are as awareness. Let that sink in. This is what you are. And what you are is so much more magnificent and powerful than your thinking mind could ever comprehend. Even the grandest of versions of who you are that the mind can conjure up do not even come close to the incredible nature of what you are as that awareness. So here's what this means for your nervous system work. When you can start to gently disidentify, loosen the grip from these patterns, from the identity structures, your nervous system regulation work becomes infinitely more powerful. All the breath work, all the somatic practices, all the window of tolerance expansion you're doing, it all lands deeper because your nervous system stops treating everything as a threat to your existence. Nothing can actually threaten what you are. These things, the roles, the thoughts, the emotions, they're all just passing through and a part of life. You remain. And this is what creates true freedom here right now in this lifetime. This is the missing piece that takes your nervous system work from a helpful to genuinely transformative process, not just expanding your capacity to perform better, though that happens, but actual liberation from patterns of mind while still having full use of that mind as a tool. It's not just throwing the mind out. It's about seeing clearly, neti neti, not this, not that. Am I this? Am I that? Not this, not that. And here's a leaf out of the last video on the importance of language. When you notice anger, anxiety, annoyance, any of these arise, rather than saying, oh, I am angry or I am anxious, well, hello, anxious, nice to meet you. Have a little bit of fun with this. You can instead say, I'm noticing anger come up for me. And better still, I'm noticing anger arising here in this space, the space that you are in, because there are no other coordinates that anyone else is occupying that are the same as your coordinates here right now. And this might sound or feel strange at first, but that's because there's such a grip on the comfort and familiarity of identifying with something, even if it's not serving us. Again, not disassociation, but disidentification as you are ready for it. You don't need to force this. Seeing it for what it is, so it actually has a chance to be processed and lose its charge rather than being pinned down by the ego's need to survive. And please, don't believe me with any of this. Do not take my word for this. Yeah. Take this and try it on for yourself. Really give it a go. If you believe me without trying it on for yourself, it will remain secondhand knowledge rather than your own lived experience. So practice this inquiry. When you notice a strong energy or a ruminating thought, just pause. Take half a step back and ask yourself, am I this or am I simply observing this? If you are observing, you couldn't possibly be the thing that you are observing, because otherwise, who is observing it? It's that simple, but it is a practice that makes it easier and easier to access. Now, if you want the full walkthrough of this inquiry process, the one you can do in the comfort of your own home, just head to the Who Am I link in the description below. I'll send you the complete step-by-step guide that takes you through this entire process in real time via a recording. And look, if you need any personalized help with this work, because I know it can feel pretty deep, there's also a Work With Me link in the description. Watch the quick explainer video about who I can and can't help, and feel free to apply to work with me via a one-to-one. I'd be more than happy to guide you through this personally, help you expand your capacity, and to do the nervous system work at the deepest possible level. And I know jumping on a sales call is usually the done thing, but know that I'll be personally on that call with you as we create that roadmap. So if you need that support, the link is there. But whether or not we do this work together, here's what I want you to remember. True freedom isn't about getting better at managing your patterns. That's a part of it. It's about seeing clearly that you are not those patterns. You are the awareness in which all of it arises. And when you start to live from that place, even just glimpses of it, your nervous system naturally begins to regulate itself because there's nothing to defend anymore. You may even notice the parts that come up wanting to defend. But if you don't identify with those parts, then you're able to process them and allow them to simply move through. That there is relaxed intensity. That there is true freedom and liberation that is available to you in this lifetime without needing to become a Buddha. Now, I hope this video gets you there, together in deep work, rest, and play. See you on the other side.